It's been a while since I last recorded a YouTube video. It's been a while since I am happy. Hello everyone, my name is Mike, and this is Jeopardy!
Now entering the studio are today's contestants. An advertising executive from Fort Worth, Texas, Matt Fells. An admissions director from Bedminster, New Jersey, Elaine Cooper. And our returning champion,
the bored cyborg. Welcome back to yet another episode of What's in the Bag. This is going to be a big one today. I'm contemplating splitting it up into two videos, but I'm going to try to get through these pretty quickly. I've got some movie-related, sort of, items that aren't movies that I'm going to show off here. I think I've showed a video game or two in the past. The plan is to eventually show you guys, everything that I pick up that has to do with video games or movies or anything else that I pick up that I think is interesting. Nerd stuff. So, let's dig right into what I've picked up over the last, honestly, about a month or so. I started working at a bookstore, and I get a 50% discount on used items and 35% off of new items. So I've spent a few dollars there, a few dollars on my paycheck, I should say, over the last month or so since I started, and I got some really cool stuff that I'm getting ready to show you guys here. I'm going to show you now. So I'm going to have some sort of semblance in this video. I have DVDs up first, then I've got series, then I have a VHS, a lone VHS, and then Blu-ray, and some other items that aren't related to, well, sort of related to movies, like I said, that I'll show at the very end. I'm curious to hear what you guys think about my pickups over the last month or so, so feel free to leave some comments below, and we can get a little discussion going as per usual. So, let's dig in. First DVD up is in a Blockbuster case, which I do need to switch out at some point. It is Franklin.
Hey, it's Franklin.
Franklin.
Coming over to play.
I picked this up at a flea market, actually, I think. I'm not sure if I got it on camera for a thrifting episode, but Franklin. Franklin. This is a film that has sort of loomed over me in the last decade or so. Ever since it came out, it always struck me as a very universal classic monster sort of vibe. Obviously, this guy here, I know nothing about this movie, so forgive me for my ignorance, but he reminds me of the Invisible Man, of course. Just looking at the box, and, it's got a very gothic sort of aesthetic going on, and the screenshots on the back, I don't know, it just reminds me of a universal horror film from the 30s and 40s. I don't know if it's inspired by that, at least looking at the case and the creature guy man thing here. It seems to me that it was inspired by those movies. It has a very gothic look. I don't know shit about it. Is this movie any good? Let me know. I'm willing to give it a whirl and see if it's something I enjoy. So, Franklin.
Hey, it's Franklin.
Next up is a weird movie that I ran across here called Debs. I think I picked this up at Goodwill one night. I don't think it was recorded for a thrifting video. Debs. I don't know anything about this, but it has girls, hot girls with guns. This chick on the back has a revolver with a scope. I'm a simple man sometimes. That's all I needed. It came out in 2005. It's written and directed by Angela Robinson. Rated PG-13 for sexual content and language. That's a shame. I figured there would be violence in here. I don't know what this is. It seems comic booky. It's got a cool cast, and it says Clueless meets Charlie's Angels. So, yeah, maybe it'll be some fun. It definitely looks like Clueless or like Jawbreaker, those sort of films. So we'll give it a whirl and see how Debs is. I don't know. Next up is a film that I've actually never seen. Another one, I guess, that I've never seen. The Brave Little Toaster Goes to Mars. Now, I grew up with the original Brave Little Toaster. I have very fond memories of the movie. I haven't watched it in like 2 decades, and it's because it's one of those movies where I'm afraid to sort of revisit it just because it may not have the same allure that it did when I was a child. But I do need to revisit it just strictly for nostalgia's sake. I used to be very moved by that movie in many different ways. Anyway, Brave Little Toaster Goes to Mars. I guess this is the third in the trilogy. There is a trilogy of Brave Little Toaster films. I'm assuming they dwindle in quality as it goes along. I don't know that for sure, but hey man, it's the Brave Little Toasters, and it's like a sci-fi story. Sure. I actually picked this up from the Disney Rewards program, of which I've said it in the past, but I usually take pictures of or slip the codes out of used DVDs at pawn shops and thrift shops, ones that are basically unused, and I use them to get free shit like this. So that's a little tip. Some of you may think it's a little sketchy. I don't. I feel like whoever bought it didn't use the code. I'm capitalizing on that. F them. So I got this for like 400 points or something, and I just figured, sure, it's Brave Little Toaster. I've exhausted every title that I want on Disney Rewards at this point. So Brave Little Toaster goes to Mars. Yeah, sure. This is a fun one. This is one I might have to do a riff review on, because I'm conceptualizing my next riff review here as we speak. I picked this up at the bookstore on my second day, and everybody there at the bookstore, all my coworkers, immediately knew the type of film watcher and person I was when I picked this up. Flesh Gordon. Oh! Yeah, this is released by Hen's Tooth Video. It is a porn parody of Flash Gordon, and it's from the early 80s, and it's probably really, really bad, but I'll tell you what, it has some practical effects here, some what looks like claymation. It's directed by two gentlemen, so it's outrageous spoof of the sci-fi film. Flesh Gordon is after, and their newfound friend, Dr. Jerkoff, you gotta love the subtlety, must travel to the planet Porno. So again, and Emperor Wang is the villain, so these guys were all about subtlety, as it seems, and I'm not expecting much from this, but it should be pretty fun to visit, and so I picked it up. I got it for like $2 at the bookstore after my discount, so yeah, Flesh Gordon. Oh! Alright, so next up I got for 50 cents at the bookstore. We have a bunch of movies that are like clearanced out, essentially, for $1, and with my discount it came to 50 cents. This is just a hole filler, honestly, guys. This is a film I watched when it came out. I don't remember shit about it. It came out at a time where I was expecting a certain type of Jim Carrey film, and I was very young. I was 12 or 13, I think, when this came out. Yeah, 13. And so I was kind of like tuning out, you know, in a time before cell phones. I would have been on my cell phone if I had a cell phone, but I was just sort of tuning out during this movie. But you know what? It's directed by Frank Darabont. I believe he didn't write it. He produced it and directed it. So Frank Darabont, you know, Green Mile, Shawshank Redemption, a lot of Stephen King stuff, The Mist, of course. I'm expecting this to be a pretty damn good dramatic performance by Jim Carrey and a pretty good movie. So I don't remember much about it, to be honest. Pretty sure he owns like a theater of sorts, and it's just sort of the story about him. So The Majestic, I'm gonna give it a whirl. It was 50 cents. I'm sure it's on Blu-ray, but I figured I'd add it to the Jim Carrey collection. I had to pick this up. The Majestic. All right, next up, same place. I got it at the bookstore for, I think, $2.50. The Night Stalker and the Night Strangler. Now, I am a huge fan of Kolchak, the Night Stalker, one of my favorite television shows of all time. I didn't grow up with it or anything, but about 6-7 years ago, I started watching it, and I fell in love with the character. Kolchak, played by Darren McGavin, is just to the T. He is perfection in the role. The theme song that starts out very light, da 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 da, sort of like a Magnum PI sort of theme song, and it gets really dark. Really, really cool theme song. The concept of this show was way ahead of its time. This is 20 years before, you know, X-Files. Basically, each episode follows Darren McGavin, who's an investigative reporter or journalist, and he goes in and you know, into these weird situations where things just don't seem to be adding up, and it always turns out to be a monster of some sort, or a ghost, or a creature, or even a human monster in some episodes. So, I mean, you name it. There's vampires, werewolves, weird mold fungus creatures, you name it. Kolchak had it. It only aired for one season from what I understand. I have the complete collection, and now I have the two films which started it all, the two TV movies, Night Stalker and Night Strangler. Love the Night Stalker. Can't wait to watch these. Alright, next one up I got at the flea market. Buddy of mine, Bobby, if you're watching, what's up, Bobby? He runs a little shop that you guys have seen in some of the thrifting videos, and a little shop at a flea market I frequent. He recommended this one to me. It's called Rock and Roll Frankenstein. So, I mean, two things that I love, rock and roll and Frankenstein. So I felt like I had to pick it up. He sold it to me for $1. And yeah, don't know shit about it. It looks cheesy, it looks low budget, it looks crappy, it looks wonderful. So, Rock and Roll Frankenstein. Next one up, I'm just gonna briefly mention, I like Casper Van Dien. A lot of the times in a pretty ironic way. He just finds himself in some of the worst movies imaginable, and I don't know. He's not a bad actor, he just takes awful roles. He has a bad agent, whatever it is. Awful roles with awful scripts, and he does the best he can with them. So I picked up Road Rage. It seems like a Fast and the Furious ripoff starring Casper Van Dien. That is probably what it is. It's directed by Sidney J. Furie, which, you know, he's done some action movies, I believe, from the 90s, 80s, or 90s. I'll put them right here. I'm not exactly sure off the top of my head, but I know the name. But yeah, Casper Van Dien, Road Rage, Fast and the Furious ripoff. It is probably shit, but I like shit. Alright, next up, that is it for the DVDs, or at least the feature film DVDs. Next up, I'm going to show you guys some TV series I picked up at the bookstore right after I get a drink of water. First up is Justice League. Man, I don't know where I've been with this show. It came out in 2001. Didn't catch it when I was 13 years old. I was getting really into hip-hop and crime movies and a lot of other things that were going on in my life at that time. So I never caught this while it was airing, but man, I have been going back to the show now. It is phenomenal. It's some of the best superhero stuff to come out of the 21st century so far, in my opinion. Every episode has like 2 or 3 parts. There are no episodes that are just a one-off. And that tells you something right there, that they have stories to tell that take more than 22 minutes. So a lot of them just feel like little films, little short films, and really great writing. The animation is superb. I'm getting to know all these characters. You know, again, each episode sort of sheds light, maybe focuses on one character and who they are and what they're all about, their powers, and their plight. But this is fantastic, guys. Justice League. And I have Season 2 here as well, so I believe that's the entire Justice League series. And yeah, I'm just loving this show, guys. So if you haven't seen this is some of the best superhero stuff you could watch still to this day, right now. So Justice League Seasons 1 and Season 2 on DVD. The Blu-rays are hard to find, but I'm happy I have these. Got them really cheap, too, at the bookstore. So, Justice League. Next up, same thing, bookstore. Got Batman Season 1. So, long story short, I had all of these at one point, all the DVDs. I sold them off when I had a pretty good full-time job. I was, working a lot, but I was making good money. Sold all these off to fund the imminent Blu-ray of the Batman animated series that eventually came out. At that time, I actually got laid off, so I wasn't able to pick up the animated series on Blu-ray, which kills me to this day. It is what it is. But I finally picked up Batman Season 1 here, at least so I can have them on DVD for the time being, because I love this show, and I'm always, there are always nights where I'm like, man, I wish I had Batman. Of course I could find it online or elsewhere, but I want, me, I want the physical copy. And finally have Season 1 here, which I've seen the majority of. It'll be fun to go back into this show. It's always fun revisiting it. It's such a great show. I used to watch it growing up. One of the few comic book series I watched growing up, cartoon series. And yeah, what can you say about Batman the Animated Series that hasn't been said? It is wonderful. One of the best animated shows of all time. Hands down. Batman. Alright, moving right along, we've got the lone VHS that I picked up solely for nostalgic purposes. When I saw this, I knew I had to pick it up for, 49 cents at Goodwill. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. You guys know I love this film. I've talked about it a bit on the channel. Not enough. Those videos will come. But Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, one of my favorite films of all time. One of my favorite films of all time. One of the most nostalgic films for me. Brings me right back to when I was a kid, 5, 6 years old, falling in love with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Even earlier, I was watching them at like 3 years old, my mom said. And I was singing the theme song incorrectly. And, But Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, I had to pick up the FHE DVD. It'll be cool to see, I remember watching the VHS and they had, like, drug commercials, like, don't do drug commercials, dare commercials in the beginning. It'll be cool to see what's on this VHS, because it's gonna give me a mainline injection of nostalgia, and it's gonna be really cool to see. So I had to pick up the VHS, which is a little tattered, but it's okay. It adds character to it. Oh god, this just brings back so many memories. Look at the little turtle face on the label there. Wonderful. So I'm glad, of course, I have this on Blu-ray. I wouldn't mind picking it up on DVD either, just to have all the versions of it, because it is one of my favorite films of all time. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles on VHS. Turtles in a half shell, turtle power.